What's up, guys? Today is July 8th, 2025. Back with another awesome workshop today. Another one that I've had kind of in the pipeline for the last couple months at this point. And that is talking about creative conversations, specifically, working in the studio with someone else and the importance of communication, creative communication, in order to get the best product. And so I found a few articles today. A couple of them actually are related to artist-engineer relationships and the importance of being able to have good communication between yourself as the artist and the mix engineer. Because obviously, a big part of working in the studio, if you have an engineer, is trying to communicate exactly what your vision is for the song or for the album or whatever you're working on at the time. And understanding that person better, knowing their tendencies, and hopefully they learn your tendencies as well. So we're going to be going into one of those articles. Another one of the articles is by, it's from the blog called Blunt, and it is specifically designed for bands, so groups, of more than one. And it kind of goes into the importance of relationships within your band. So I'll leave that in the description of this video so you guys can read that as well. I'm a little bit tired today. It was a pretty long night last night. Have some family stuff going on currently, so I'm going to do my best to get through this in the best way possible. But I'm still feeling good today. It's just I might be a little behind on the reading and things like that, so I do apologize for that. But this article that we're going to go into today, it's one of the shorter ones. It's by Union Recording Studio, and it's called Why Artist Engineer Communication is Everything. They also have a video kind of breaking down studio relationships and things like that. So you can definitely watch the video, but I will read you this article here. It says, when it comes to recording music, communication between the music artist and sound engineer is critical to producing a masterpiece. In this blog, we'll know the importance of communication in the studio process, specifically between artists and engineers. The importance of effective communication in the sound studio. Although music artists and engineers have varying specialties and levels of knowledge, both are crucial to the studio recording process. Together, these two parties can produce something that neither could have done separately. However, if there is a breakdown in communication, their efforts may be in vain and have less than ideal results. Communication between music artists and sound engineers plays a significant role in creating great music in a studio recording process. Below is mentioned the importance of communication between an artist and engineer. If you've ever worked with an engineer, you know how important that is. And I always feel like if you're in a studio that has engineers hired in already, you might not get to choose who you're working with. You might kind of just get paired up with someone who is working there at the time. So it might be a little bit more difficult to develop that kind of relationship unless it is your home studio, your home base. But keeping those things in mind. So the next point is to understand each other's perspectives. Because artists and engineers have different perspectives on the same project, communication is crucial during the process. The musical elements of the recording, such as melody, harmony, and performance, are the main focus of the artist. The technical aspects, such as recording, microphone placement, signal flow, and mixed balance, are the engineer's primary concerns. Although both viewpoints are necessary, if they are not effectively communicated, they may conflict. For instance, an artist might want a certain instrument or a vocal to be prominent in the mix, but the engineer might have a different opinion. They might produce a mixture that neither party is happy with if they don't communicate their ideas. On the other hand, if they communicate well, they can find a solution that pleases everyone and results in a better outcome. I always think about kind of trying to find a middle ground. If both people kind of want a different thing, be the person that's willing to work toward the middle ground, even if the other person is being like super stubborn about their stance. Sometimes I think you just gotta bite the bullet, and if you gotta sacrifice a little bit of your vision to do that, go ahead. But I will say, don't back down. Like, don't completely just give the other person full control if you don't feel confident about their direction. Sometimes I think people will give a second opinion, and it'll be one that's better than your own, or maybe one that gives you a different perspective that helps. So it's good to take that into note. But I think that it's important to have the balance. Like, you don't want to be sacrificing yourself as a creative for the other person's vision specifically, especially if you're the artist, because I feel like the artist is the most important factor in this whole thing. Like, both people are obviously important, but I feel like the creative is the one making the art. They have to live with the art. The engineer's job, a good engineer's job, or producer, whoever it may be, their job is to serve the artist and serve the song. So I feel like that's a big thing, and that's probably a way that you can tell if you're working with the right person too, is this person helping to serve the song, or are they just helping to serve themselves and their own tendencies? So I think that's something to keep in mind, but like, work toward a middle ground between the two of you. And if you have a good working relationship, I feel like that's going to be easier than if you are complete strangers and maybe you're just, you happen to have gotten kind of paired up based on where you're at in the studio or whatever. But I think it just goes across the board. Like, find some type of common ground that you can work towards. That way, both parties kind of get a little bit of what they want and maybe get something new entirely from the end goal, which is, I think, the only thing you can do at that point. To increase the efficiency of the process, communication is essential during the studio recording process as it reduces the likelihood of errors and misunderstandings. Miscommunication can result in a loss of time, energy, and resources. For instance, the engineer might assume that the artist is aware of the technical constraints imposed by the tools, while the artist might assume that the engineer knows exactly what they want. If the end result falls short of their expectations, this may cause frustration and disappointment. By ensuring that everyone is on the same page, effective communication can help to avoid these kind of misunderstandings. This entails outlining objectives, expectations, and constraints before the recording process even begins. It also entails being receptive to comments and recommendations from both parties. I think a big part of this is definitely having conversations before recording. If you don't know this person, try to get to know this person on a human level. Like, have conversations about their day-to-day life, not really about music specifically, but just kind of shoot the shit. Like, just talk about life for a bit, even if it's like, an hour or 2 hours before you get to recording. Obviously, if you're paying for studio time, you might not have a lot of time to get to know this person. But if you have the luxury of maybe recording at home or recording virtually somehow, I would try to get to know this person more before I even start to work with them one-on-one. And then when you start the process of working on a song or whatever you're doing that day, you gotta be willing to speak up and speak your mind when there's something happening that you either don't like or something you want to change or anything like that. If there's some type of issue, or even if you just feel like you want to get something across to this person, you cannot just sit there and say nothing, because they can't read your mind. No one can read each other's minds. So it's important to be able to have a voice and trust that that person is going to understand your perspective and where you're coming from. And as long as it is something constructive, you got to be willing to add that to the conversation. So I think that would be my 2 points for that as well on why that's important. To better collaborative process, and finally, good communication between artists and engineers can result in a deeper comprehension of the studio recording process. Both parties stand to gain from this as they can both learn from one another and develop a deeper understanding of the various elements of the process. An engineer might develop a deeper understanding of the creative process and musicality, while the artist can gain a better understanding of how the tools and signal flow can affect their sound. In conclusion, communication between music artists and engineers is critical to the studio process, recording process. A fruitful collaboration between the two can result in the creation of a masterpiece that not only meets the artist's vision, but also exceeds expectations of the audience. As a result, both parties must collaborate to ensure that their communication is effective and productive in order to create a high quality sound recording. So basically, in a nutshell, that's the whole thing, by the way. Basically, in a nutshell, it's a little bit of everything with that, with working with someone else. And again, they're talking about artist to engineer. This could be artist to producer, bandmate to bandmate, whatever. Any type of collaboration you have to be willing to play your part, be fair, speak up, and serve the song. I think is the biggest thing of all. Like, put your own ego aside and just do what's best for the song at the end of the day, no matter what role you're playing in the whole process. So I think that's just something I wanted to touch on today, because it is something that a lot of people overlook, and like how important is communication in the work environment. Like, if you have a job, how important is it to be able to talk to your coworkers and like kind of work through things? It's pretty vital to having success. So it's no different when you're talking about creating music with others. Communication is something that you need to be able to do. So I think it's worth touching on. But like I said, 3 articles I'll leave for you guys in the description. That one is the Union Recording Studio article. The other one is by Blunt. And then there's one more that is also another artist engineer related article, and it's by Soul Asylum. And it kind of dives a little bit more into the artist engineer relationship, gives more in-depth details on that. But yeah, that's pretty much what we got for you today. So I hope you guys, can take something from that and, I don't know, learn a little bit about kind of working together, or learn more about working together. So let me see what we got planned for next week. Okay, so July 15th, 1 week from today, we'll be talking about the artists and producers on YouTube. So basically what a YouTube channel can do for you as an artist or producer. I'll talk about my YouTube journey, because it's been an interesting journey for me on YouTube over the last like 5-6 years. And then I'll give probably some tips on, how to kind of get a YouTube channel going and how to be consistent on YouTube specifically. So that'll be a pretty good topic. So I'll start researching that more probably this week. And yeah, but again, I hope you guys got something from this. Hopefully it helps improve your collaboration process, and keep me posted. Let me know in the comments, have you had experience with good collaborators in the past, bad collaborators, and how was the communication, and why do you think the lack thereof communication kind of led to the result that you got? I would definitely be interested to know that. But that's all I have for you guys today. As always, be safe, be positive, and have a great week, more importantly. So until the 15th, we'll see you then, and take care, guys.